Hey everyone, welcome back to Week Ahead Astrology Breakdown. I'm Matthew Oliver with Stillwater Alchemy, and this week, conversation, mindset, even health seem to be key components that we're working through. Remember now, the moon is gaining light since we had the Sagittarius new moon last week. So these are important things to look at because as we're gaining that energy, as we're gaining those momentums into these themes that we just talked about, it's going to be important to address certain topics so that we can keep that forward trajectory going, that we can keep that passion, that energy, that vitality of Sagittarius season going and not hinder us. So this is going to be one of those weeks where if there's something that's on your mind, something that's on your lips or tongue, or something that you need to say, or conversation that you're meant to have, this is going to be the week to do it. Okay. So let's take a look at the transits to show you that in greater detail. So we're starting on Monday, November 28th. End of November, we're closing out the month, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the reason why I'm saying that is because we're getting to that opposition with Mars, with both Mercury and Venus. So this is something as well, just to be a bit more advanced and technical here. So if your sixth house, where we find work and health, so if your sixth house is ruled by Taurus, Libra, Gemini, or Virgo, that means that either Venus or Mercury rules your sixth house. And now it's going to be opposing Mars. And Mars is retrograde. Mars rules infection, disease, illness. So just be careful of burnout this week, or overworking yourself, or being stressed from work, because we have Mars in Gemini. So there might be a lot of thoughts or a lot of worries, a lot of doubts. Is this going to work? How is this going to work out? I always think of Sagittarius, right, of going bigger, those dreams. Sagittarius, of course, ruled by Jupiter. So if we're getting in our head worried about every possible thing, and it might not even be related to work, you might not just be able to focus on your work because you're worried about another dream that may not be falling into place at this specific moment. I always find with oppositions as well is that both planets want to be expressed at the same time in equal measure, which can sometimes be very challenging to do. But if you can do it, it's almost as if both planets are shining bright and those energies can be fully capable. It's like a tug of war. And if both sides are pulling as hard as they can, then neither of them is going to give way, but both of them are fighting so hard at the same time. So there might be certain ways where we can slow down with Mars retrograde, or where we need to, maybe if you are sick or recovering from an illness, where it gives you more time to think about certain things and dive into relationships, or dive into pleasures, or dive into certain dynamics that are going to bring you more joy. I'm not sure if any of you felt that, but when you are not working, or when your body is healing, there's more profound downloads, or certain things come in because we are resting, because we are not working. We are in that feminine energy to receive. So just note that if you need some time to rest, especially because Monday and Tuesday, the moon is conjunct Saturn, that is also an energy for us to slow down. So if you need that time, if you don't feel like working extremely hard at the start of the week, do not, because it may just lead to burnout, exhaustion, and getting sick. I also feel that if there is a conversation that needs to be had, especially when we go to Tuesday here, when that opposition with Mercury and Mars will be exact later on Tuesday, we also have the moon Saturn conjunction. And then the moon also is making that wide separating aspect to Uranus. So if there is a conversation, if there's an energy with a feminine energy, especially the mother, you might also be processing that as well on Tuesday. So be aware that these conversations will need to be had, or if you need to place a boundary, or need to have, even with Saturn, that can be related to mastery. So you might also be proving yourself, or proving a certain dynamic of your life that you've worked extremely hard for. And that might also be twofold, that you worked extremely hard for something and now you know that you are worth it, that you are leaving wounds, maybe from childhood, maybe from your mother or your mother's whole line of ancestry. So this could be quite profound and quite intense, depending on how this may manifest for you. And I wanted to just say as well that on Monday and Tuesday, the moon is still making some nice sextile aspects to Sagittarius. So normally, if I were to look at this, especially with we've been dealing with this moon Saturn energy every time the moon is in Aquarius or when the moon is in a fixed sign. So this might be an energy of where slowing down for you is more enjoyable. Where slowing down and not working as hard doesn't come with feelings of guilt or shame or anxiety, where this is a time where it's like, if I don't slow down, if I don't take time to place these boundaries, if I don't take time to honor my worth and really maybe master a certain area of my life, it's going to cause more harm than good. So just think about these things. It's also going to help to look at the houses ruled by Gemini and Sagittarius in your chart for greater introspection. And one side note, a lot of people ask me, it's probably the most common question I get. What do you mean when which houses are ruled by Gemini and Sagittarius? I don't have any houses ruled by Gemini. If you use the house system whole sign houses, then each of the 12 houses will be ruled by one of the 12 zodiac signs. Most apps and most websites use Placidus as their default, which can then cause some discrepancy. So as a gentle reminder, and for those of you watching who have friends and family interested in astrology, maybe pass that tidbit along during the holidays so that more knowledge and information can be disseminated. I would greatly appreciate it, and we can all learn astrology at a better, more frequent rate. Okay? Thank you. Now, let's move on to Wednesday. So it's almost poetic, like I say, with these transits, that for some of you, if you don't take time to slow down, you may get sick or burnt out or just need a personal day. Whenever I find the moon in Pisces, especially with Neptune and Jupiter, it does have that more dreamy, sleepy kitty type vibe. It also can be a very powerful day for manifestation, a very powerful day for magic, miracles, where really, because now Venus, Mercury opposing Mars, where your thoughts rapidly manifest. And so please, please, please be careful of what you're consuming, what conversations you're having. A lot of times too, I find, like, let's say I'm in an Uber and they're talking about scarcity, or they're talking about, I had this one Uber going off about women, and it was so awful and so disrespectful. I had to tell him to stop and clear my energy, because he had all these limiting thoughts around women and how they were using him and not loyal. And I don't even know how this conversation started. I think we're just talking about people in general and what they're going through right now. And then he just made it all about himself. So it was a lot. And in that moment, I was like, these are not my beliefs. I need to shut this down right now. And then block his energy as I'm still in the car. And then once I left the Uber, I had to cleanse it all. So it's sometimes just so random, or it's one conversation we have. We need to make sure that we're protecting our energy. And 7 planets in mutable signs when we're moving through Wednesday, Thursday. So be aware of that there might be certain things that you want to change or reassess, or you might need to change to allow your body or mind or spirit to heal. We do have this moon sun square, and then also the moon is going to be making a square to Venus and Mercury as we move through Wednesday and Thursday. So again, moon in Pisces, a very sensitive soul, can be quite emotional. Also, to take responsibility for your actions, and you may also need to make other people aware of their actions. Sometimes I find with Pisces moon, it's a lot of deflecting. It's a lot of manipulating emotions. It can be a lot of, this didn't really happen, or painting a different picture, or painting a different reality, gaslighting with Pisces moon. And that can be us trying to deflect, or that being projected onto us. So let's say you had a conversation with someone, or you need to discuss how you feel, and people are making you feel like that didn't happen, or that's not the truth. Stand firm. Remember, we just have the moon conjunct Saturn in terms of boundaries. This can also be a great time to go deeper. A lot of times with Sagittarius, with it being mutable fire, to really be present and still and process those emotions. Sometimes that's not high on the list of things that they normally do. And of course, that's a general description given that mutable fire. However, we may need to just sit in those feelings. We may need to sit and see how we feel, even if it is uncomfortable, in order for us to go deeper, in order for us to really understand the spiritual work, maybe to understand relationships with ourselves and others in a greater intensity. And I'm just also curious as well that when we get to Thursday, we have that T square happening with the moon, Mercury, and Mars. So don't allow your emotions to get in the way of certain things that need to be done, or the fear of confrontation, or the fear of how other people may feel. I get that comment or that energy a lot from people of, well, I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. It's not about hurting the other person's feelings. It's making sure that the relationship can grow in whatever way it's meant to, whether that's together or apart. And this is relationships in any dynamic, not just romantic love. That can be siblings, that can be friends, that can be colleagues, that can be neighbors. Just do not hold off, especially if your intuition is telling you otherwise. Like we have Moon, Neptune, Jupiter conjunction here. I also feel as well, given that Venus-Mars opposition happening, that there might be a very, very, very strong likelihood that an ex will reach back, or ex-lover, ex-relationship might reach back, and it might be very tempting to go into that, or you might be facing a lot of stress. Like that opposition with Mars retrograde can cause us to think rapidly, or to think old thoughts, or to have a really stressful day at work, and then it's really easy for us to go to an old lover or an old addiction or an old vice or an old way of thinking. I would implore you to further lean into the benevolence and the mindset and the visualization of the life that you want, and knowing that this will pass, that if you can get through Thursday, that it's like all the steps you took throughout the week are going to lead to something new when the moon goes into Aries. But we can't move on into a new phase if we're still dealing with old reoccurring mindsets, old reoccurring relationships. So it is a good time to reevaluate in all regards what we're going through. Where is that tension? Where is that stress? Where are we being called to slow down? By being called to slow down, does that trigger us in ways of, if I do this, then I won't get this. If I do slow down, then I won't get that. That's going to be really important time, and making sure that you do get the rest, because like I said, with Mars slowing down in general, if we're not taking time to slow down in different parts of our life and prioritize maybe the rest, or prioritize our mental well-being, then it'll just show up in different ways. And then it can cause us to think all these different thoughts, or go back to old situations that are not aligned with us. So that is that. I do like Wednesday, Thursday a little bit, because we do have that moon sextile to Uranus. So it could be a shift in the right direction, knowing that this conversation or this energy or this business deal or what I need to do in this dynamic is not causing as much worry. I know I can go fully into it. So I just feel like a lot of energy is meant to shift this week. Of course, with 7 planets and mutable signs on Wednesday and Thursday, that it can be a shift for the better, but we need to actively show up and do this work and see where there might be that pain or anxiety or the resistance to slowing down, so that we can overcome that. And then when we get to Friday, this is such a benevolent energy, because now Venus and Mercury are leaving that opposition with Mars. We now have the moon making that trine to the sun, and moving into Saturday, that trine to Venus. This is fun. This is lively. This is party type energy. This is going after what you want. So this is the expansion of the week. This is where, now that you've placed boundaries, now that you've maybe released certain mindsets or certain relationships in that capacity, that you get to grow. And that can sometimes be intimidating. I know a lot of people like to look at Chiron, but this can be in the sense of, whatever it is you want, you can have. And maybe that energy of fear of being seen, or a fear of succeeding, is getting in your way. And if you can overcome that, then it's like you can really have the world, because you're meant to just go and play and have fun. It is a holiday season after all. So go out and celebrate, be around people that make you happy, that bring joy, or that spark that joy and happiness within you, to see where else you're feeling called to expand. Because when we move into Saturday as well, we just get to see the moon also making those aspects benevolently to Venus, Mercury, and then even a nice sextile to Mars retrograde as well. So there could be that hindsight, or now you realizing what needed to be done, where you needed to slow down, where you needed to place your mental health or your mindset high priority, where it all makes sense, right? And I also think that there could be that aha moment on Saturday with the moon making that sextile to Saturn as well, where things made sense, or where there could even be truth that is revealed for your highest power. I always find that, yes, with Pluto, there is control and obsession, but layers of truth, or us finding out certain things about ourselves, maybe even from a subconscious level, that become very profound. One thing I wanted to mention as well, Wednesday, Thursday, with that moon in Pisces, your dreams when you sleep may also be very, very intense. So if you're wanting to retrieve information from when you sleep, just asking your subconscious before you go to bed. And this is contingent, everyone, that you do this regularly, that if you can get grounded, if you can take that 30, 60 minutes without screens to be in a more receptive energy, that you are releasing stress, you're releasing energy from the day, that you are getting into your body, that you being able to receive downloads when you sleep and remember them will be more heightened Wednesday and Thursday with that moon in Pisces. So that can also be a great time for dream work, dream interpretation, to do that energy, to see maybe where there is resistance or where those conversations need to be had to aid you along the way. Okay. I always like that moon in Pisces, especially given that this is the last time that moon will be conjunct Jupiter for a very long time. And also, this is a very fertile energy as well. So if you're wanting to create, wanting to get pregnant, if you're wanting to put forth new energy, it's also that first quarter moon vibe. So initiating, putting forth energy is also very, very strong. So I also wanted to mention that as well. And the last day we have is Sunday, moon in Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus, and we don't really get that square to Saturn until Monday. So we can really just enjoy the benevolence of the moon in Taurus, not really afflicted by Saturn too much. So enjoy Sunday. Sunday is a day to just be lazy. Sunday is a day to rest. Sunday is a day to do whatever you want to do. It could be a nice day to stock up, do those things to set you up for success for the week ahead, or have a nice bougie, but it could also be a boozy brunch, depending on how you want to play that. But yeah, do things to continually make yourself good, feel comfortable, feel safe. These are all really nice energies to enjoy. And we do also find now that Mercury, Venus making that square to Neptune and Jupiter. So this could also lead to a little bit of overindulgence or hedonistic type energy. So enjoy at your own discretion. This can also be nice for people that are a bit more, maybe, what's the word I'm thinking of? Frugal, that you might just get to enjoy things or open up the purse strings. But for those that are generally more generous or might be likely to shop a lot or to spend a lot, just be careful. Mercury and Venus can also relate to spending and money, and with it making a square to Jupiter and just being an emotional spender, it's like, oh, well, this person would really like that, this person really deserves this. If your finances allow, that's great. But having the moon in Taurus and then having Venus and Mercury making those squares to Neptune and Jupiter, just be cautious of spending too much. And that can also be your time as well. It doesn't have to just be money, or your love of just giving and giving and giving. Make sure you give some of that to yourself. Okay. Beautiful. So the astrology question of the week comes from Ollie the artist. They ask, what are aspects that speak to codependence versus interdependence? I've really been struggling with finding connections away from toxic codependency I'm used to. Will there be any changes that aid that, or do you have any advice? Thanks as always. No problem. So this is a big question and kind of multiple questions within the question. And if we're just looking at the astrology and not speaking to psychology related to astrology, because that could be a whole hour lecture, I do want to speak to, if we're talking about codependency and interdependency in relationships, that is synastry. So synastry with regards to astrology is looking at two people's charts and seeing how they fit into each other's lives, or where there are going to be blessings, or where there can be challenges, or where codependency may arise. If we're looking at that, that's going to be a bit more tricky, because then we would need to know, of course, the other person's birth time. We would need to know how, and depending on when you first meet that person or how you're growing in that relationship, how you can work together. And so a big thing with codependency, I would look to Pluto aspects with the ruling planet of the seventh, with the moon, with Venus, because even benefic Pluto aspects, so sextiles, trines, and even sometimes conjunctions, depending on the sign, can be really intense and can lead to codependency, never mind oppositions, squares, and then sometimes conjunctions, depending on the sign and the house that they're in. So that is something I would always look at, even in the person's natal chart. So if we're looking at this individually, looking at the ruling planet of your seventh house. And with ruling planets, we're talking about traditional rulership. So Mars for Scorpio, Saturn for Aquarius, and Jupiter for Pisces. Even just knowing the ruling planet of your seventh can help you understand what type of energy you need in relationships and where maybe you would be likely to be codependent. So let's say your seventh house is ruled by Libra or Taurus. That's going to be Venus. So maybe you are just really wanting that relationship in all dynamics to be balanced or safe or pleasurable, or really needing it to fulfill certain like status quos or money as well, because that can be sometimes a big thing with both Libras and Taurus. And again, this is going to be depending so much on the aspects that the ruling planet of the seven makes. And so just speaking to this to give one insight, because like I said, there's so many different things we can look at. I would look to see if Pluto makes any aspects to the ruling planet of your seventh and see where maybe that could play into effect in your relationships. Another thing I would look at as well for interdependence would be a strong Saturn energy, or even Mars, because right, that's going to be knowing where to place boundaries, or where you know that you can just work and be active and be focused without needing to be in relation. So that Saturn and Mars placement, even your natal chart, can show you where you are going to place boundaries, or where you are very passionate and driven in a certain area where you maybe wouldn't compromise or be in a situation where a partner is trying to be codependent with you. You're like, no, I need this boundary. I need this time for myself to enjoy this, Mars. And then the Saturn can show a firm boundary. So let's say you have Saturn in the third, and the third really speaks to communication. And let's say you're always at dinner parties and your partner talks over you or doesn't let you have a chance to speak. Then a strong interdependence would be like, no, we can have equal say and equal time in this conversation, or even just talking to one another, that you wouldn't want to be talked over or just be listening all the time, that you'd want to have that back and forth, or that even just communication would be an important part in relationships, and that placing time and energy and mastery, let's say, would be important. One final thing with this is that if we're talking about codependence versus interdependence, yes, it can be in the relationship as a whole, but you might be codependent for money, for nurturing, for knowledge, for accountability. So it might not be codependence in the entire totality of a relationship. So that's something also to look at for everyone if you struggle with that in relationships. Is that codependence in love? Is that codependence in my time? Is that codependence in what energy? So that you know how to place that boundary. And then you can also specify in a certain part of the chart where that may happen if you're looking at synastry readings. So if you have your partner's birth information, then you can see where that energy may come into play more. And that's really where I'm looking at Pluto a lot, because we do speak of obsession and control and manipulation. And those are a lot of energies that come in codependent type relationships. And then speaking to Saturn and Mars, that may help to recalibrate, or where you can see where interdependence can serve you greater. Okay. So let me know if that resonates. I can go into that further or clarify anything else next week or the week after, bring this up. I will most likely be talking about this more as well in the Moon Day chat. I will go live as I do on Monday, so stay tuned for that. I always post at the exact time on my Instagram story. And aside from that, have a beautiful, benevolent week. Do not sit on any conversations. Allow yourself to slow down. Give yourself that time to rest. and see what expansion or what downloads come forth once we get to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.